could open a map on your phone, and a blue dot would tell you exactly where you are on Earth. But for 200,000 years, your ancestors had no maps, no compasses, no GPS. They walked into forests where every tree looked the same. They crossed deserts with nothing on the horizon. They sailed onto open ocean for weeks with no land in sight in any direction. And out there, getting lost didn't mean being late. It meant you didn't make it back. So how did they find their way home? Navigation was a skill, and ancient humans were astonishingly good at it. Good enough to find a single island, smaller than a town, in the middle of the largest ocean on Earth. They never carried a map, but they had something better, and you were born with the exact same equipment they used. Let's start with the simplest version of the problem, a forest. To you, every tree looks the same, brown bark with green leaves. To your ancestors, it didn't. As they walked, they were building a mental map. Every bent tree, every split rock, every stream crossing became a marker. They walked a route once, paying real attention, and remembered it forever. Researchers who studied hunter-gatherer groups found that these people could describe land they had crossed a single time, in detail, years later. And when memory wasn't enough, they left signs. On every continent, humans marked their trails the same way. They snapped branches, scratched the bark of trees, and stacked small piles of stones along the route. But the greatest land navigation system ever built was never written down at all. It was sung. In Aboriginal Australia, the land was mapped in songlines, long songs that describe a route, landmark by landmark, in exact order. The lyrics name a waterhole, then a ridge, then a bend in a creek, in the precise sequence you would reach them. Sing the song in order, and the song walks you across the country. Some songlines run for hundreds of miles and pass through groups who speak different languages. The melody changes, but the route holds true. They didn't read their map, they sang it. But every land map has the same flaw. What happens when the landmarks run out? Walk into a desert or onto open grassland, and the whole trick collapses. No bent trees, no split rocks, nothing to remember. The land goes blank. So they looked up. The sun came first. It rises on one side of the world, sets on the other. Watch it, and you always know roughly which way you face. Push a stick into the ground, and you can read direction straight off the dirt. But the sun always set, and the night sky appeared. It actually turned out to be an even better map than the sun. Stand in the northern half of the world and find one particular star, and it will not move. Every other star moves slowly around the sky all night long, but that one sits almost perfectly still, fixed above the North Pole. We call it Polaris, the North Star. Find it once, and you have found north for the rest of your life. And the stars that do move, they move with total discipline. Each one rising and setting at the same point on the horizon, night after night. Learn where a star clears the horizon, and that star becomes a bearing you can steer by. Ancient navigators memorized dozens of them. The sky had become a map, and that map made the impossible possible. But there was one place where none of this should have worked: the open ocean. No landmarks, no trails, just water in every direction, by every rule of navigation. The open Pacific should have been a wall our species could not cross. They crossed it anyway. Starting around 3,000 years ago, the Polynesians sailed out into the Pacific in wooden canoes and found nearly every habitable island in an ocean that covers a third of the planet. Hawaii, New Zealand, Easter Island, thousands of specks of land scattered across thousands of miles of empty sea. Here's how. When they could, they used the star compass, the same rising and setting stars from the sky map, memorized in staggering depth. But when cloud hid the stars, they had to read the ocean itself. Swells is what they read. The long, deep waves driven by distant storms that travel in steady, predictable directions. A skilled navigator could feel several different swells rolling under the boat at once and use their steady rhythm to keep the boat pointed the right way. Some navigators would even lie down flat on the bottom of the boat because the most sensitive way to feel the sea was through their whole body. They also read birds, seabirds that sleep on land but hunt at sea. Every morning they fly out over the water, and every evening they return home to land. So a bird heading back at dusk draws a line straight toward an island, still hidden below the horizon. They read clouds, too. Islands make their own clouds, and those clouds sit still in the sky, directly above the land. The shallow water around the island is a bright greenish blue, a color that reflects up onto the bottom of the clouds. A navigator could spot that faint green tint in the sky, and no land was near, long before he could see the island itself. For centuries, scientists refused to believe any of this was real. So in 1976, a canoe called Hokulea sailed 2,500 miles from Hawaii to Tahiti with no instruments at all, guided only by Mau-Piailuk, one of the last navigators alive who still held the old knowledge. He made it. The idea that it had all been luck was finally proven wrong, right there on the beach in Tahiti. But all of it, the songlines, the stars, the swells, leaves one strange question. If they never carried a map, where was it? The answer is something almost nobody knows. The map was real. It just wasn't made of paper or song. It was made of cells, and you are carrying it right now, a few inches behind your eyes. In 1971, a scientist named John O'Keefe was recording a rat's brain as it explored a box. He found something astonishing. Certain neurons in a region called the hippocampus fired only when the animal was in one exact spot. Move a single step, and a different neuron fired. He called them place cells. The brain wasn't just remembering places, it was giving them addresses. Then, in 2005, two scientists, Maybritt and Edvard Moser, found the other half of the system. They discovered grid cells, neurons that fire in a perfect, repeating hexagonal pattern, laying an invisible coordinate grid over everything you move through. It is, almost exactly, the grid lines of a map, drawn in living tissue. Place cells know where you are. Grid cells know how far you've moved. Together, they form a positioning system. And in 2014, O'Keefe and the Mosers won the Nobel Prize for discovering it. Scientists gave it a nickname. They called it your inner GPS. This is what your ancestors were really using, not luck, an organ. But here's what's super interesting. That organ behaves like a muscle. Work it hard, and it physically grows. In 2000, a researcher named Eleanor Maguire scanned the brains of London taxi drivers, men who had spent years memorizing 25,000 streets by heart. The memory center of their brains was measurably larger than everyone else's. The map in their heads had grown big enough to see on a scan, which means it can also shrink. Studies of people who navigate by GPS, who just follow the blue dot and the spoken turns, show the opposite pattern. The more you hand to the machine, the less that system fires. Spatial memory fades. For 200,000 years, every human carried the map inside them. You are the first generation that doesn't have to.